The northbound entrance is currently open. There is no southbound entrance, and I don't know of any.
There is no southbound entrance. There is no way to exit at 72nd Street. There isn't. They have to build a whole new road. There really isn't. And DOT has promised to monitor the whole 79th Street during the whole rotunda road.
And Richard, our resolution is so broad that it's possible, right? These are just examples of things we thought they can do, but we are trying to impress upon them to be creative and to think of things that would reduce congestion. So, yeah. Shall we just call the question? Oh, you have a question? Yeah. Michelle?
I'm reading this resolution, I feel like I've read it before this evening. And I don't mean I read it when I reviewed all the resolutions earlier today. Wasn't a lot of this covered when we, wasn't this a lot of these issues covered already with the rotunda, discussion about the rotunda?
Yes, when there was a series of resolutions regarding the rotunda, and we call upon all sorts of safety measures, but this is specific and it's for the present. There is a problem there right now. We're calling on the DOT to do something now. They have to be mindful that this project's coming, but right now we want them to do something to alleviate what is currently and presently a problem.
Well, where did you get this information that honking horns are a constant problem, especially in Russia? Where all these stats come from?
The community. It's not a statistic. It was complaints from the community. We're trying to address the complaints. I don't live anywhere near there, but people who do live came to our meeting and complained and had pictures, and they were very persuasive that something should be done. Again, if the DOT determines they can't do anything, we're not calling on them to do anything specific. We're calling them, there have been a bunch of complaints from people who live at this intersection, and we're just calling on the DOT to look into it. It's also one of the most unsafe intersections in the district, so we feel it warrants additional scrutiny. Injuries.
Wait, just one more thing. I'm sorry, Andrew. I lost my train of thought. Doesn't DOT like it when you give them specific recommendations?
Yes, but I'm not a traffic planner. They are. So we don't know what to do. We just heard complaints, so we defer to them. This is not ideal. The ideal thing was we could point to something very specific that would improve the situation. I don't know what would. There are a lot of complaints. It seems like a problematic situation, so we're just calling on them to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Michelle, you should know that when we approved the change in the traffic signals at 79th and Riverside, many of these issues were raised there, so we've heard them more than once.
Yeah, it's not my imagination.
No.
I'd just make one point. I live at 84th and Riverside. It's a terrible intersection for everyone. It's a good thing to do, and I would encourage us all to vote for it.
All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstention?
One. And
42010.
Great. And the second resolution concerns 61st and Broadway. As many of you know, Avalon Bay has rented some ground level retail and adjoining floor retail to Target. Target is very reliant on a lot of deliveries. There are going to be trucks there, and we adopted this resolution calling for a loading zone so as to prevent what is likely to become a more congested street from becoming even more congested. We want to prevent trucks loading and unloading in a double park position. We want them to be able to load and unload against the curb so as to allow the traffic to flow and to increase safety, because a double park tractor trailer loading and unloading is going to create, in our opinion, an unsafe situation. We understand there are people here who want to speak about that issue, and Roberta has told me that we're going to allow 15 minutes for the people who want to weigh in on this issue to divide up the time however they see fit. But I urge them in talking to us is to what we're trying to do with our resolution is to avoid chaos and to help us to come up, if there's a way to even be more effective at avoiding chaos. Again, the committee determined that having the truck unload against the curb rather in the street was safer, and so with that, I'm looking forward to hearing what
Okay,
speakers have to
15
say.
minutes starts now. My name is Joan Lurie. Most of you have heard me before, but not all of the community board has ever heard us discuss this, which is why it's so important that I have all these people here. I am going to speak to you for about 5 minutes, then our attorney, Mr. Stephen Orell, will talk to you, and then I have people who will take a minute apiece who are concerned residents. I assure you we can use our 15 minutes, if not more. We had hoped that the loading zone, given the potential harm to the safety of our street and the quality of our lives, would be defeated. There are many reasons to defeat this loading zone. No one on CB7 has addressed any of the quality of life issues which arise from these huge trucks on our narrow street. There has to be a loading zone, put it somewhere else. We have not discussed safety, we have not discussed congestion, we have not discussed pollution, we have not discussed noise. It is inexplicable to all of us that the Transportation Committee hasn't considered serious risks here. We've given a presentation, a long PowerPoint presentation to the Transportation Committee. I sent it to the leaders of your whole group this morning, hoping that I would be able to show at least parts of it, but we obviously don't have time, so it doesn't matter. You can certainly look at it. The main thing is that no proper environmental study of the effect of 55-foot trucks, wherever you put them, double park, single park, whatever, on a narrow street like 61st Street, will have on all of our lives. These trucks will not only service Target, but will service other people who may rent other commercial space. They'll probably also consist of moving vans and people moving in. And all of this gives us the impression that the most important thing to people who we've tried to discuss this with is not our street, but rather the profits of the developers. The congestion has become impossible almost already because the traffic department has made 61st Street the first place coming south on Columbus from 67, where you can turn east. Now picture adding some 55-foot trucks. We're going to try to turn east at that same point, okay? That's almost impossible. Between the bicycle lane, the parked cars on Columbus, and any other traffic on 61st Street, we've watched 55-foot trucks. Some of them ride up on the curb, some of them have to split the turn, where you make a K-turn. It's really not a hospitable place for them. And one of our biggest concerns, of course, is that as the congestion gets worse and worse, and I have a picture demonstrating this one, emergency vehicles can't get through. We can't get ambulances or fire trucks through a street that is almost totally blocked. I'm leaving this picture here. I hope you people will look at it. It shows an ambulance unable to pull over to pick up a sick person on our street because of this congestion. So, as I said, Target's only part of the issue, and Target's new buy online and pick up in 2 hours policy will put even more cars on our street. But a much worse circumstance is that Target is claiming they need to make deliveries from 4 a.m. to midnight, okay? So the noise and all that, I leave to your imaginations. But why is it that they have to do that? Why is simple. We have found the answer. They have to do that because they, Target, choose not to pay the inventory space inside the building where their store is located. So they have to do much more inventory refilling than they would have to do if they were behaving responsibly and putting the inventory on the shelves in a slightly bigger area, let's say, than 30 stories. So all of that makes us think that this is really a bad idea. Then we heard from the DOT that they have done a traffic study, and we find out they really have not. Other people will address that more carefully. Just one other thing I had to say, I've covered that one. Okay, so one of the things that we were told by Target is that they will need at least 14 trucks a day. And if they don't get the larger trucks, all of their other trucks will come into a loading zone that is a loading dock, loading dock, that is already part of the building, and that is directly opposite the front entrance of our building. They claim if they don't get permission to use 55 for trucks as well, the 14 may become 16 or 18. Well, frankly, I'd rather have 16 or 18 small trucks than 14 small trucks and 2 big ones, or whatever's gonna happen here. So the loading dock is already a fait accompli. There's nothing we can do about it. We don't think it should have been permitted where it is, but it's there. We're stuck with it. We are hoping not to also get stuck with this. So what are the options? One of the options that we know about, but we know it's not popular with the DOT and we're not sure why, is moving the proposed loading zone to Broadway. Because Broadway has more room. It's a bigger street. We don't have the room. The question is, why is there so much opposition to it? We've heard nothing rational that makes sense. Absolutely nothing. At the very least, I would expect this community board, that as a whole, I would point out, has never heard from us before tonight. This is the first time we've appeared. We've appeared to the Transportation Committee twice, but never to all of you. We would at the very least expect that if you determine to have this loading zone, you explore and help the Department of Transportation to help us understand why Broadway is so unacceptable. So, on that note about Broadway, I would like to introduce Stephen Orell, who's our attorney, and I wonder if you could tell us when he's finished how much more time we have, okay?
Greetings, Madam Chair and members of the Community Board. My name is Stephen Orell. I'm an attorney at Schwartz, Slatkus, Reich, Greenberg, Atlas here in the city with counsel to the Board of Managers of the Beaumont condominium. The condominium is located on this block of West 61st Street. Joan covered some of the material I was going to, so I'm going to be very quick and just cover a few things. When the Transportation Committee, and I know you guys do a lot of great work, and I've appeared before other Transportation Committees, when the DOT came before you in April, and Ms. Chattergood, who I've met on other occasions, said that DOT had studied the feasibility of the truck loading zone. We did a FOIL request to find out what did they study, what data did they come up with. Finally, I talked to Ed Pinkar, who's now the Borough Commissioner, and asked him that question because when I did the FOIL request, I got one of those automated responses back and said, you'll hear from us in January of 2020. And he said, oh no, it wasn't the traffic study. It was a feasibility analysis, really a curb access. They checked to see is there any reason why they couldn't put a truck loading zone there. I think the same thing with city bikes. You can't put it where there's a fire hydrant, you can't put it where there's a manhole cover, and so they find, oh yeah, it's feasible there. But there's no traffic data. I'm not gonna get anything from my photo request. So that, I don't know if you all knew that, but that's what I know now. The second thing about the Broadway alternative, DOT has a great website. It's called the parking sign locator. You can look up any parking sign in the whole city, run your cursor over it, and it'll tell you what parking signs are where. There are truck loading zones on avenues in the city. What Ed told me was that DOT didn't want to lose metered parking spaces on that stretch of Broadway. That's sort of a policy. They don't want to lose metered parking spaces on avenues. There are truck loading zones on avenues, including on Broadway, in front of the Fairway, in front of the Zabars, in front of the Fairway on 86th Street in the Upper East Side. That's, it's an excuse. I'm not sure it's a great reason. And finally, you see something interesting if you spend time playing with the parking sign locator. I spent several hours yesterday and today looking all over the Upper West Side, and I could not find another truck loading zone with hours that begin at 4 o'clock in the morning, or even anything before 7 a.m., not in this neighborhood. not anywhere, in the city. There's one, I'll say there's one that starts at 5:30, but that's on 86th Street. This would be, the truck loading zone would be earliest starting time on any residential side street, in the Upper West Side that I could find, and I haven't looked at the whole island of Manhattan. With that, I will, defer to the unit owners and residents, talk about the quality of life.
So my name is Tony Stepansky. I'm a resident at the Beaumont, 30 West 61st Street. I was president for a number of years, God forbid, and on the board. No good deed goes unpunished. Really quickly, several weeks ago, the Transportation Committee voted to prohibit parking on West 61st Street because two members actually visited the street, saw the congestion that the construction trucks were imposing, recognized the impact this was going to have on safety, pedestrian safety, resident safety, and they voted to prohibit parking on that street. Shortly thereafter, the Parks Commissioner complained about the fact that the prohibition was going to make it exceedingly inconvenient for members of this department to get in and out of the building. So let's talk about what inconvenience is. At any given point in time, I've walked this myself and I've measured it. There are no more than 12 Parks Department vehicles on that street. 12. Within a 1.5 block distance, there are 30 to 50 parking spots available. So the Transportation Committee, I believe, rescinded the prohibition and sided with the Parks Department. Why? Because the convenience of 12 to 15 or 30 Parks Department employees was more important than the safety and the security of the residents. Forget the residents, the pedestrians that use that street. Who uses the street? People going to Lincoln Center, New York Institute of Technology, Fordham University. Hundreds, thousands of people use that street. It is a safety issue. This board, first of all, should demand a proper study by accredited, authorized, reputable organization, not partisan, okay? And get that study completed before a decision is made, okay, to lift the prohibition. And if the study says there is no risk, no significant safety issue, will go away. In the absence of that, if that is not done, we're going to institute legal proceedings to get our way. Try to get our way. Thank you.
Just a point of information, the resolution that we have in front of us does call on the Parks Department to find alternative parking for all of those vehicles. Just a point of information.
My name is Eileen Mintz. My name is Eileen Mintz, and I'm a resident of the Beaumont condominium on West 61st Street. I'm concerned about the negative impact Target will have on the quality of life in our neighborhood as well as our safety on West 61st Street. The hours of delivery can be as much as 20 hours a day, starting at 4 in the morning. There will be an increase of trucks, including delivery, garbage trucks, UPS, and FedEx. The idling of trucks, packages dropped on the sidewalk, carts pushed noisily from loading zone to the receiving dock, and increased garbage, all adding to the unnecessary congestion and additional air pollution we already have on our street. Only recently, after many meetings, has a Target representative attended a meeting to hear our concerns. At the last Transportation Committee meeting, a Target representative attended who had been hired just a few days before and was unable to answer our questions or address our concerns. As constituents of our elected and appointed officials, I find it difficult to understand why the concerns of the people who vote for you have not been taken seriously, but outsiders like Target and Avalon Bay coming into our neighborhood to take advantage of us are shown more respect than we are.
Next will be
Anthony Lazanas here, another resident of the Beaumont. Very simple point. Your responsibility is not to make the right decision. Who knows what the right decision is? Your responsibility is to make sure you ask the right questions and that we conduct the proper due diligence to find the answers. And the right question is not my convenience or the Parks Department parking convenience or the profit margin of Target or Avalon Bay. The only right question is safety and the health of the users of the street and the residents. And I care about my disabled son crossing the street in front of the 55-foot truck to, drop the mail in the mailbox or get his favorite cookie. I care about the school children waiting on the street in the middle of the fumes of the trucks, idling trucks in a very narrow street that now it's even, has huge high rises that, basically block everything inside. That's the responsibility. And I'm asking, why don't we have a proper study? Why don't we just take the DOT word that's a very vague statement, it's convenient, it's actually feasible, right? We need to ask that, because if we have the first accident, who will be responsible?
Hi. As a resident of 30 West 61st Street, I've experienced firsthand the congestion caused by the Avalon Bay and Target project. Imagine if you close your eyes for a moment. Time's up. Oh, that was everything. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As I was saying, if you for a moment just close your eyes and imagine you're driving down Columbus Avenue and you want to make a left turn at 61st Street. It could take you 2 to 3 lights to make that left turn. And as you make that left turn, you stop immediately because traffic is backed up. And you can't advance anyplace. This, of course, predates what's going to happen when there's congestion pricing and the street gets even more congested. Then there's the negative impact of the environment with all these cars and trucks and buses, and the trucks are standing there idling, just spewing out their stuff. I was there the other day, and the 2 trucks were side by side. Nobody could pass them for 15 minutes, and the street was in a cloud of smoke. I think we have to make some decision as to whether our health and safety is more important than the profits of a few people. Thank you.
I think we're all set.
One more.
One more, speaker.
My name is Shams, I'm Gumar.
We've heard this in committee twice. We've had 4 or 5 meetings with representatives from MoMA, with Booker's office, with the Rosenthal's office. But we've never met with the full board.
Full board, I want to say one simple thing.
Okay.
Thank you for not allowing double parking the truck. But now the Target offers you a very good service, 2-hour delivery. Place your order online and go and pick it up. People who come to pick up on their car, they'll double park on 61st Street, doesn't matter what, and they'll go inside to pick it up. Or they could call Uber and taxis. And best example for you to watch is go to Columbus Avenue and watch what it is like in front of Whole Foods. If anybody drives on weekend on Columbus Avenue in front of Whole Foods, is a traffic nightmare. And it's a 61st Street. First Street has 1 lane and Columbus Avenue has 3 lanes. And that is blocked out on weekends. And when the people come to pick up their goods, doesn't matter where the trucks are parked, the road will be blocked, no matter what. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We, just let me say something briefly about this resolution. We have expressed, as was noted, we've heard this twice at the committee. It's unfortunate. Target, for better or for worse, Target is coming. That's just a fact. And they're coming, and there are trucks that are coming, and the question is not whether Target should be there. They're going to be there. The question is, how do we reduce the chaos and congestion? And the question is, should the trucks unload as double parked trucks in the middle of the street or against the curb, allowing the street to function as a street? and have a loading zone. That's the issue. So that's the issue for discussion among the committee.
It's not your turn to speak, it's now.
It's now the committee's turn.
I'm sorry, this is now a discussion of the board and not the money.
Okay, let's committee discussion.
We don't have the benefit of a graphic. I'm looking on my phone, and so the question is for the committee. Chairman?
Yes.
The question is for the committee, Chairman. Since we don't have a graphic to look at, I'm trying to get a visual picture of that block, because I'm always passing by there. So is the target property that shrouded building?
It's on the north side of the street.
Well,
on the
yeah, but,
northwest
all right, so
corner.
then, I'll get to the point. So then, north of that shrouded building, which is 61st Street,
Yeah.
there is another building, is that the Avalon, that's coming up, the new structure? All right, so then, there's no north side to the target property.
Right.
There's an access here, so you can help me out with this, Roberta. There's an access here on the east side of the building. It's kind of a carve out that you would enter to 62nd Street.
There's no problem, there's no access on Broadway.
Let me explain this, so we don't need a visual. The Avalon Bay entrance to the building is on 61st Street. The entrance to the Target part of the building is the corner of 61st and Broadway. The trucks will be coming, the loading bay, there are two loading bays on 61st Street, on the north side of the street, at the western, at the west,
The western.
excuse me,
No north side facade. That's the adjacent building.
Would you allow me to explain?
the Avalon Bay extends from, on 61st Street, from Columbus to Broadway. It occupies part of it doesn't go all the way to Columbus. Excuse me, I'm speaking. It doesn't go all the way to Columbus. There's another building. Once they get past that building, the Avalon Bay goes from that building all the way east to Broadway. And they need a loading zone on 61st Street because the entrance to the loading docks are on 61st Street, so they're going to take the materials from the truck to the into the loading docks. Now, the other thing that you will be helpful to know is they are probably not bringing pallets. They have a racking system. Target has come to us 3 times. They have a racking system, so they load the truck up. The truck has racks. The racks get wheeled off the truck. Unlike a pallet that has to then be lifted up and moved down the block, the pallets get rolled down to the loading dock and wheeled into the loading dock. They get taken downstairs into the Target stores. The empty racks from a previous trip are rolled back out into the truck. So it's a very easy in and out. The committee has twice voted in favor of this, and I would recommend that we vote on it now.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one clarification as well. When we talked about Broadway, we talked about, you guys are very concerned about the noise of the unloaded pallets rolling down the street, even just from the loading zone to the loading dock. If the loading zone is on Broadway, they're gonna have to come all the way around the corner and all the way down that block. So that, we talked at the meeting about how that would actually be worse for the things that you guys are worried about.
Noise is only one issue.
If someone wants to call the question.
All right, we're gonna have 10 minutes on this, and we're gonna vote.
Yeah, this 4 a.m. to 12 midnight has to be expunged from any consideration here to support anything here. It's outrageous. It's outrageous for any place in the city. It just is incomprehensible.
So I have a number of questions and issues with this.
This is the note. So did we accept that? Is that an amendment?
We accepted
I don't see it as a friendly. Our goal is to minimize chaos in the street. That was our goal, whether you agree with it or not. And to have a truck, can I speak or not? But and to have a truck in the middle of the street at 4 a.m. is a hazard, and it's noisy, and we are not in favor of it. No.
Just to say that the loading zone hours.
Because to have the truck at 4 in the morning, not against the curb, to have it in the middle of the street unloading is worse.
I think he's saying to have the hours of the loading zone.
Hours of the loading.
We don't control. We have no control over Target's procedures.
Not in the resolution.
Can I interpret? Okay, I think you're not understanding each other. Okay, so here's what happens.
Yeah.
You're saying that you don't want Target loading or unloading during those hours on the street.
There have to be some hours, but it's outrageous.
Okay, what happens, let me just finish. What Howard's saying is that if we restrict the hours of the loading zone and Target feels like bringing trucks in, they're going to double park them, and it will be worse. That's Howard's fear. But that's not. So here's what I'd like to suggest. Since we have a long meeting, we have to be out here by 10. We still have a lot to do. So I would like to vote on the amendment. If that's okay.
Can I just understand the amendment so the voting zone would not be available?
No, it has to be available sometime during 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. But that it has to be altered, not to be first at 4 o'clock in the morning, and before normal hours, maybe.
So cars would be parked there until 4 a.m.?
There's currently a no standing anytime.
Well, they start bringing their trucks in at 6 a.m.
We don't have any.
I don't know why it's necessary, but there's an amendment on the floor just to keep this meeting going. All those in favor of Shelley's amendment, which would be to restrict from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m.
That's the first part. That's the first part. I would say from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. Okay? Because people.
That's not going to happen. All right, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but let's call the question. All those in favor?
Wait, can we clarify and say exactly what time would it be allowed as a loading zone and what time would it be a no standing? I would say for an 8-hour window. So what, from midnight to 8 a.m. it's no standing, and 8 a.m. to midnight they're allowed to unload?
I just need to say something. I would prefer, obviously, them not to unload at that time as well. But the point is, Target will do what Target wants to do, period. Period. We have no control over it. That's a fact. That's a fact. The question is, can we do anything to reduce chaos on our street? Can I just wait? Shelley, I'm speaking. They are coming with their trucks, and we are trying to figure out a way to minimize the disruption as much as possible. If we don't have a loading zone at 8 a.m., they will be in the middle of your street, unloading their trucks in the middle of your street. That is a dangerous and disruptive situation, and I'm against it. And so is the committee.
They're not gonna block the street, it's illegal. They cannot block the street. I have a question.
I have a question too, I've been waiting here.
Well, we're debating the amendment.
Howard,
Let
let me, can I ask this question? You said that there's nothing that we can do about it. Am I right about when they're gonna unload? Is it not feasible that DOT, in fact, controls the traffic patterns on that? And they could put up a big sign that says, no loading or unloading, 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Couldn't they do that? The city can do that, can't they? Were they asked specifically?
Yeah, they were actually.
I just find that difficult to accept.
They do it. I think they do it. Look,
They do have the juggernauts that park from nose to tail. Yes, it covers the bike lane,
they get in and out, and they have those plastic pallets that you're mentioning on rollers, and they're only allowed supposedly to do it during the day. Sometimes they get stuck and they do it at night.
All right, here's the way,
It's feasible, I agree with you.
here's what's happening. Jeanette's gonna speak. I saw Rich's hand up, I saw Andrew's hand, and then we are voting.
On the amendment.
On the amendment, and then we were voting on the resolution.
What's the amendment?
Wait, well, tell you the amendment.
To be made clear.
My questions are not necessarily about the amendment.
Let's do the amendment.
Let's do the amendment. Is anyone else thinking about the amendment?
Yes.
But can we just hear the amendment? What is the amendment? Write it.
That the loading, use of the loading area is only, should be available from 8 AM to 4 PM.
That will never happen. They have to bring the
And if it, that's what I'm proposing, and I think it's the thing that makes most sense.
We're taking
8 hours, anything can happen
We're
in 8
taking one more
hours.
comment on this and we're voting.
What's that?
Quiet, everybody.
Instead of 4 AM to 12.
Okay, I believe I have the floor.
So make it, you think it's better 7 to 3 or 7 to 4?
Wait, Rich, speak, and then we're gonna vote.
So I have a fundamental issue with both the underlying premise of this resolution and with Howard's objection to the amendment, which is the contention that if we don't approve this under the terms dictated by Target, they're going to do it anyway. And the reason that we have signs and laws and the reason that they can't double park is because it's illegal. And we have Deputy Inspector Manning here. You know, I know he doesn't want to be enforcing trucks double parked. But, you know, if we're giving an ultimatum and that they're going to block 61st Street if we don't give them this loading zone and let them unload trucks between 4 AM and midnight every day, do we really want to turn our side streets into constant parades of long trucks that either park on the curb in loading zones they're forcing on us or threaten us that they're going to double park if we don't do that? No, we don't. And I support this amendment. I think we should make it a no standing zone from midnight until 8 AM at the very least, probably 8 PM to 8 AM, and force them to bring in the trucks during the day if we're giving them access to 61st Street at all. And I think we should vote against the overall resolution because I don't think they should be bringing these long trucks onto 61st Street. So to summarize, I think we should support the amendment, limiting the amount of time that they can be in a loading zone if we have a loading zone on 61st Street. And I think we should oppose the resolution because I don't think they should be on 61st Street in the first place.
Okay.
All right, wait a minute. Sarah, Andrew's going to speak.
We need to, but he just made an amendment to the amendment. That he thinks to be 8 to 8.
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
What should be 8 to 8?
The loading zone.
The trucks need to, okay, here's the story. The Target wants to bring their trucks in prior to school opening, which means they'd like to bring their trucks in between 6 and 8. They'd like to not bring in any trucks during the 8 to 10 period when the schools are, the children are being dropped off at schools. They also would like to bring their trucks in prior to 2:30 when the schools start letting children out, and not bring trucks back again until after the children are safely home. So I would, if you're going to make change the resolution, I would make it 6 AM to 8 PM and would you accept that as friendly?
Could I just want to understand, so from 6 AM to 8 PM it's a loading zone?
Right.
And from 8 PM to 6 AM it's a no standing zone?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on.
So you're accepting it?
Yes, it's accepted as friendly.
Okay. We don't have to vote.
So now we can vote on the resolution. So let's vote on it. No, we accepted the.
It's a friendly amendment now.
He's accepting.
We have one more speaker. That is, excuse me,
I have a number of questions. This is a typical situation where the developer builds a building, does not provide sufficient space for the retail to have the loading zone within the building. So then they come and they ask for free parking of a loading zone on the street. And the reason why we where we have trouble with it is because we have all this placard parking across the street from it. The city's own task force on congestion in Manhattan said one of the huge culprits for it was placard parking. And you're telling me how many parking spaces the Parks Department has? So, this is not our problem to solve. This is between Target and the developer. They have to figure out how to service the retail space that they have. And they shouldn't force the community board between two bad options on how to give them free access to the building. And by us just saying, oh, we'll stick up a sign and say loading zone, of which any car will pull over there, rather than having strict enforcement for how they function, and having Target and the real estate developer renegotiate their deal. There's a reason why big box retail is not in Manhattan. And there's also a reason why letting them in is why our small businesses are struggling. So this whole thing is twisted, and it pains me that the community board is arguing over whether we should give them a loading or a standing zone.
Unfortunately, DOT could give them a loading zone without coming to us. Instead, they decided to cause us a lot of grief. So we're going to call the question.
Just let me say one thing.
Nobody asked for that opinion now, because that's an opinion. We are rationally trying to figure this out.
DOT could have approved this. That is a fact.
It's here.
I just want to say, I think out of this contentious conversation has come a resolution that I'm very comfortable with, and I think it's better for the community. Basically, the resolution, as I understand it, is there'll be a loading zone from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and a no standing zone from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I think that is an improvement.
Right. So can we call the question?
Howard
calls the question. All those in favor?
Can we be clear about what we're voting? We're voting on the resolution that's been amended.
It's very clear.
It's not very clear.
He just said it is a loading zone from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and a no standing zone from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
This is not the amendment.
Including the friendly amendment.
That's the whole resolution.
That's the whole resolution with the friendly amendment. All those in favor, please put your hands up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32.
All those opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All those abstaining?
1.
All those who can't vote for cause? I don't think.
1.
What is the cause that you can't vote for?
I have absolutely no direct benefit, but the company that I work for represents Target, but I'm not involved in any way.
Then you can vote.
Well, he just would
I feel.
Thank you.
My company represents Target. I'm not involved with it at all.
Before we go to the business session, excuse me, our next item is business and consumer issues. I have been requested by a few board members to have a candidates night. According to the bylaws, the chair of the board, in conjunction with the election committee, can decide on whether there would be a candidates night or not. I am going to hold it to a vote. There will be no discussion. But if we were to hold a candidates night, it would be the night of the 17th, which is steering. All those in favor of having a separate and not having it, it will also be at the full board meeting. All those in favor of having a candidates night on the 17th, please raise your hand.
Candidates night.
What is it?
Okay,
It's an info session for
so what it
candidates.
would mean is that normally every board member has to come to the full board meeting. Normally candidates speak at the full board meeting the night of the election, and they get to hear, all the board members get to hear the candidates. The problem with having a separate candidates night meeting is that not all the board members are gonna be able to go, and it's possible that not all the candidates will be free that night. So, routinely, Community Board 7, at least in the 11 years I've been on, has never held a separate candidates night meeting.
It's not true.
Not
We've held
in
it
the-
on steering, we've held it the night of steering committee. Right, that's what she's talking about. So we've held it the night of steering committee.
But not in the last few years.
Okay, but we have held it in recent.
Maybe once.
All the years I was chair and people were running, we had that allotted on.
Okay, so here's the deal. So it would be the 17th, it would be for half an hour during the steering committee, because at steering we have a lot to do with the DNS. So, if this is a vote, up or down. All those in favor of having a candidates night on the 17th of September, in addition to the candidates presenting at the full board on October 2nd, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Roberta? 26. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
All those abstaining? It does. It also means we have to have a quorum. So if we don't have a quorum, we don't have a candidates. We're not voting, so it doesn't matter. Candidates are going to have, here's the deal. Candidates need to present at the full board. So, you can go and hear them twice if you want, but you don't have to. We need to keep this meeting going. We still have a lot of work to do. It's almost 9 o'clock. So we are now gonna go to, the other thing before we forget. Huh?
Yes, oh, it was 26-16-0.
The item 15 was put on by Ms. a while ago when Katie thought she would have to take a leave of absence. Fortunately, she's been able to change her classwork at NYU. We congratulate you on being a student again. And so item 15 is being removed from the voting sheet.
Can we vote on that?
I think we'll discuss it tonight.
Was there, is that an item? Did we put that in as an item that we just voted on?
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is 2014 Broadway. It's application for a new liquor license for 2 years. There was no opposition to this at the committee meeting, and we decided to approve it. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41.
Anybody against?
Opposed?
Anybody abstaining? Okay.
41-000.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 425 Amsterdam Avenue. They are applying to change the method of operation for the liquor license. They want to be able to do acoustic, non-amplified acoustic music, and they were proposing to do this like one night a week between 7 and 10 p.m. They also are the owner of their own, they own the building where the venue is at. They received a letter of support via email by one of the neighbors. Another neighbor was present, and actually the neighbor that lives above them also was in favor of approving the application. Any questions? All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Roberta? 41. Those opposed? Abstaining?
Okay.
41, 0, 0, 0.
Next item on the agenda, 377 Amsterdam Avenue. We had them today at the pre-meeting. At the time of the meeting in July, there had been a miscommunication in the office, and they had not been able to post. So because of that, we wanted to give the public ample opportunity to come to a meeting, and so we had the meeting today. At this time, there was no opposition to their sidewalk unenclosed sidewalk cafe application. There was one neighbor present who had a couple of questions that were answered to his satisfaction, and we approved the application by a committee vote of 9-0-0-0. Any questions? Yes.
What is Vaquero?
I'm sorry?
The name. What is Vaquero?
Where?
Vaqueros is like a cowboy. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Opposed? Abstaining?
Okay, the next application is also for an unenclosed sidewalk cafe, 718 Amsterdam Avenue. Also with this venue, there was some miscommunication, and they were not posted properly by the time of the last meeting, so we invited them for the pre-meeting today. Unfortunately, the representatives of the restaurant had difficulties getting here on time, so because they were not present on time, we disapproved the application 9-0-0-0-0. We have invited them to our next meeting, and we'll see them next week. So, any questions? So this is a vote to disapprove. Okay. This would have been the second time, but again, because the public did not have a chance to weigh in, we have to. Okay, so all those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Those opposed?
Just to note, Christian, I think it's Rancho Tequila.
Okay, moving right along, we are going to preservation.
Hi folks, so we're in the preservation home stretch here. The first resolution on your sheet for our committee is number 7, 2 West 64th Street, the Society for Ethical Culture. Because I voted against the resolution at committee, it is incumbent that someone else speak on its behalf. I'm lucky that this gives me the opportunity to respond to Jay's point of personal privilege earlier to say that I have nothing but respect for Jay. I shouldn't be sitting here talking to you about the virtues of someone whom I'm going to hope you'll vote against. But this is, I am deeply troubled by what he shared, and no one who supports me, and I hope to convince you, many of you, to do so, but please don't do it for anything that is in any way related to the matters that Jay raised. They have no place in our board, they have no place in our election. And so with that, I am very proud to hand this resolution to Jay to present.
Thank you. And the reason I'm presenting it is because I voted for the resolution. It's a little unusual because it was a 4-3 vote in our committee to approve this. It's a relatively simple application. It's for 2 West 64th Street, which is the building occupied by the Society for Ethical Culture. The building, what's important to know, and I'll skip a lot of the facts, is that the building, which was built around 1909 and 10, is in fact an individual landmark. The application is to install lettering forming, quote, the Society for Ethical Culture, close quote, onto the facade. And I don't have a pointer mark, maybe, okay. See if I can. So let's see if I can find the spot. This is, I assume, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at it on Central Park West? That's the cross street, okay. So this is the area where they are asking us to approve putting lettering on the facade, which will be attached to the facade. The letters would be 1/4 inch deep, and they would be in dark oxidized bronze in the Bookman typeface, which is essentially a simple typeface. I think they're bronze letters. Obviously, they'd be permanent letters, and obviously they would be somewhat invasive into the facade. Okay, that's a close-up. This is basically what it would be, the Society for Ethical Culture. Really, it was a matter of, I think it was more subjective than objective as far as the board vote. There were 3 members of our committee vote, rather. There were simply 3 members of the committee that felt that the lettering was unnecessary, and therefore, because it was invasive on the facade of an individual landmark, was inappropriate, whereas the majority of the committee felt that it was unobtrusive enough and appropriate on this landmark building. Yes?
Jay, I have a question. Just what was the reasoning behind this decision right now to install the lettering after so many years?
I think that it had to do with, and Mark, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, that where they have drop-offs, they have a lot of drop-offs on that street, and mostly for safety's sake, since they have a school there, that a lot of the vehicles that are transporting their students, there was nothing to identify exactly where that building was on the side street. And they felt it was essential to regulate the traffic and so that they wouldn't be dropping off kids at various places along the block.
If I'm not mistaken, aren't there, pardon me because I don't know the correct name, but aren't there like banners or flags on some part of that building or flagpoles or something
I
like
don't.
What they said about that, Jay.
I'm
They
sorry?
They said they put banners up on Central Park West, but the wind ripped them to shreds.
Got it.
So they were looking for a more effective way to
Yeah.
save the name.
Identify the building.
You say the
name
of what?
Of the school.
But that's not the school.
No.
To identify Society for
The building.
Ethical Culture. I just spoke.
Of course.
First of all, everybody knows this building. It's been there since 1910. It occupies the entire block. And I can't believe that for safety's sake, you need to gouge the facade of the stone edifice and input letters, that they couldn't get the banners to work even by putting the little wind flaps in them. There are many other ways you can do this that are reversible. What happens, and God forbid it does, because we don't want our religious and educational institutions to continue to evaporate, but if you wanted to change your mind, this is even the Romans wouldn't gouge and insert metal. You do it in beautiful carving in the stone, or you put a metal plaque. So I find on two grounds, one that this is not necessary, but certainly in the guise of safety. If that's the case, you put a guard out there. Trinity does it. High school that I was on there. We heard this on Columbia Grammar. That whole school needed people. I think a person guiding people, and if you're having your child picked up by somebody who doesn't know where the school is, I wouldn't have him pick up the child. So I'm against this, and I hope you do.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to respond to the initial comment that it's been there forever. We have a lot of families in this district who haven't lived in this district forever. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there might be plenty of people who don't know where that building is, and to assume that just everyone does is disrespectful to many people in the neighborhood.
Correct.
And I also think that, we have lots of buildings in our neighborhood that have old carvings or engravings from times things they were used for before, and I always think that's just neat to see what the building was used for before. So I don't think the argument that it might change owners necessarily means that it can't do it.
Thanks. The first thing to remember is that this is the Society for Ethical Culture, not the Ethical Culture School. The Ethical Culture School is on the other side of this building on Central Park West. And it, by the way, has the answers that I would propose for this, and the reason why I'm one of the three that opposed this application. I have no issue with them identifying their building. I think they should. They have said that among other things, that Uber's trying to find the building coming down Central Park West, go too far and go to the Ethical Culture School, and that's a problem that merits solution. Christian, is there another slide? One more? There it is. So,
Yeah.
I don't need to, thanks. I have two objections. One is what Paige just said, you don't drill holes into a blank monolithic sheet of an individual landmark. And Paige said it better than me, so I'll just leave you with that thought. The second objection that I have is that and so what's the answer to that? The answer to that is put the name on the pediment of the doorway, either the main entrance or the side entrance. First of all, that's much easier to repair if ever there should be a desire to change the lettering. Secondly, it doesn't drill into this monolithic fabric, which if you read the designation report for this individual landmark, which by the way, has a blank wall facing Temple Emmanuel across the park for a very good reason. The architect used to belong to Temple Emmanuel and was actually turning his back on his former brethren. So I think we need to respect the architectural integrity and intent of what that architect was going for. So, so putting a hole in this monolithic fabric is not the correct answer. The second is the typeface. If you look in the upper left-hand corner of the screen you see there, there is already a sign on one of the panels on the Central Park West facade, the monolithic one without the windows, and it has a very stylized Beaux-Arts typeface that is very reminiscent of what that kind of a building would have had for its name in the early part of the 20th century. And if they're going to put a sign over anywhere on that facade on 64th Street, it ought to emulate that typeface. So my view, they've got the wrong typeface in the wrong place. I fully support them identifying themselves, just not as they propose it, and that is why reluctantly I voted against this application.
Jerry, can we just quickly go back to
Cut that mic.
Yeah, there's some sort of.
Maybe turn the.
Yeah.
Turn it off. Maybe it's that mic. No. Oh, you picked that up. Stop.
Just to show you, there's a lot of dissent in preservation by Cordial. I'm going to pile on with Mark on this one. There was a ridiculous moment in the committee meeting where the representatives said, they were lovely people, but they did say we couldn't find the typeface that was used in the old placard, so we found this new typeface we think is appropriate. And I voted against it because it was pretty obvious to me that the typeface was right there in the black from old days, and they could certainly generate enough of the letters. And I also agreed with what Paige has said, that to gouge this building and insert metal in it, I mean, I have a brief background in historic preservation, that's just not what you do to materials conservation-wise. It's just bad form.
Which is why our meeting was going to midnight. Yeah. All right, Richard.
Just quickly, the representatives from Metro Culture respond to your point. They give any explanation for why they didn't do it.
With respect to the sign over the doorway, they said that they were concerned that it wouldn't be big enough to be legible by an Uber coming down Central Park West. And they wanted it on the Central Park West end I believe that what they said was that when people are dropping off, they're going to go past the main entrance, and that's when they want to make sure anybody who knew where the main entrance was wouldn't need the sign. Anybody got to that point would know enough to stop. As to the typeface, Susan was correct that they claimed not to be able to find it. There's a public speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want to use the mic?
Yes. Peter.
Please tell us your name.
Peter Hurst. I had no idea what this was about. I saw a sign and I came and it said a quarter.
Someone, just get closer.
Sorry. I'm just going to
turn it on. Turn the mic on.
Not working.
I'm gonna fix it, I'm coming around.
Or just speak loud.
Yeah,
There's not many people here.
People, I turned the mic off because I did not know there were any public speakers.
Did ethical culture say that the school was involved in the decision?
School is not in any way involved.
Sir?
If the school wasn't involved in the decision, and it's about, the story is about an ambiguity between the school and the society, the question should, the posting of the story should not have been on August 1st without any participation from the school. So you should, of course, vote against it and consult the school. And another thing is that, well,
Roberta, I think there's someone from ethical culture here.
ethical culture what? School?
Society.
But you have to consult.
Why?
Well,
There are no children being dropped off here. The children that go to the school are on Central Park West. They specifically are not here The children who are the children of the evangelical churches that meet on Sundays, the proud ethical culture, are children who go to Sunday school in the YMCA. They do not go here. They go to the Y. The school won't allow them in.
Madam Chairman, may I see the director of the society, so perhaps we should let him speak.
Yes, sure.
Go ahead.
I hate to delay your meeting any longer than it already is, I understand. But I'm a trustee of the society. We have spent 10 years debating whether or not to put this sign on our building. And just last week, I had a meeting in the building with someone who said that they're walking by this building for 10 years, never knew what it was. And that was our problem. Our committee spent years, actually more than 6 months, trying to identify the typeface, which is not a standard typeface. We found the closest thing we could that would still fit the mood and style of that building. The fact is, we have no identity, and we have hundreds of people coming into this building who've never been there before. They're coming in for events that are run by the League of Women Voters, by Time Warner, Time Talks, New Yorker Festival coming into this building. We have a constant stream of non-members visiting here, and they're looking to find out what this building is. And that's all we're asking for, a very simple dedication and identification of the space.
Will you remove the sandwich board that's changed 64th and Central Park West?
Excuse me.
Have that sign that identifies you there?
Not appropriate.
All right, Rich, can we make it quick?
Yeah, it makes sense that they identify the building, but it would be great if they could do it in a non-permanent way that's not etching deep letters into
Apparently
No, they're raised
feel that
letters.
They can't in a way that is sustainable. So let's call the question. What? I'm sorry. Sorry, Barbara, I didn't see you.
My early background is in publishing, and I am a book designer. I was a book designer. I'm really into typography, and a lot of people who would be offended by the use of this typeface as opposed to the one on the original building. They were designed at least half a century apart. I dispute the fact that you can't find that other typeface or something closer to it. There are many typefaces like that. I can't off the top of my head tell you what it is. But Bookman is a very specific typeface which is just gone here.
We have about 50 typefaces we researched. I won't say this is necessarily the one. There is one we found that's closer, and we're going to try to do that, but it depends on what the company that makes this stuff can come up with. And they're going to try to match the other signage as best they can. We don't, because that was 100 years ago, before QuickType standard typefaces existed. So we were doing the best we could. So we're going to try to match the other one, I guarantee.
Mr. Chairman, call the question.
We have to make an amendment.
All right, we're calling the question. The resolution is to approve. All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Abstaining? 1.
11, 28, 1, 0.
So I'd like to now take the microphone back and propose a substitute resolution to disapprove as presented while supporting the idea of identifying the building, but without drilling into the main facade and with a typeface that is more consistent with that which is on the Central Park West facade. Does everybody understand the substitute resolution? I would simply, I don't think we should design it for them, so my resolution is to place it in a way that doesn't drill into the fabric of the building, but leave it to them to figure out where and how, as long as they don't drill into the holes. And by the way, one thing that's usually available to folks in this situation is to put the holes in existing seams in between stones and bricks. I'm seeing some no, but again, I would leave it to them and the LPC to figure that out.
Can I just answer the reason why? You're adding bronze pins into lime mortar with limestone.
Okay, well, so, but I'm gonna cut that off, I'm sorry, because, you know, we are on the clock here, but my resolution is to disapprove, while approving of the idea of the sign, and a more appropriate placement of it, and a more appropriate, typeface. So this would be item number 16 on your voting sheet. Give me 1 second. Item 16 on your voting sheet, and it would be to approve. I now see a couple of hands. Sorry? The material, help me understand. Okay, that's a fair point. So a typeface as close as humanly possible to the one that already exists on the building.
But then you're allowing them to have permission to do it.
But we know that it's not, so you don't think this is gonna work. All right, you know what? We're gonna go with, we'll just go with the disapproval, period. And if there's a desire to come back, we will certainly entertain it. Well, to the extent that we can, but let's now move on. So I'm going to now take this back. Thank you, Jay, for getting us through item number 7. We are now on item number 8, 135 Central Park West. If we could have the images, for that. The headline on this one is that there is inserting new windows into a mansard roof. And so a mansard roof is one of those angled roofs. Here we go. Yes, great. This is, by the way, a building that sits in between the Dakota and the San Remo, so this is pretty much the heart and soul of the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. What you're looking at is the south half of the mansard roof and building above the cornice. Can we go to the next slide, please? There you go. There's a picture of the full ensemble. And I'm going to do my best here. So over here on your left side is the current condition. This application concerns just the south or left half of the building, which, as you can see, has several windows cut into the mansard of varying shapes. Not part of this application is the existing condition on the north side of this main pediment thing, technical term, which have very uniform windows. The application is this over here. They would take this model collection of odd size and shape windows and turn them into a consistent line that matches the line to the north. That's essentially the application. You can see that there is a lot of detail above the cornice line, and this would, in effect, make it uniform and harmonize it. Is there one more slide? No. No, that's it. Okay, questions? Okay, so we're going to call the question. All those in favor of this application, please raise your hand. Thank you. Next application is 21 West 75th Street. The reason you should care about this is special windows. So whenever there is what the LPC calls a special window, it can't be approved at staff level, even though otherwise this probably would be. So there you see the special window. It is one of a row of townhouses on West 75th Street on the north side. And this one townhouse on this one parlor floor has 1, 2, 3, 4 special windows. Why are they special? They're 1/1 double hung, but do we have one more slide on this? Okay, that's the original condition of the rest of the block. Can we go backwards once? Sorry, there you go. So this set of windows, unlike all the other ones we just showed you, have this leaded glass. You can sort of see it reflected in the light there. Has leaded glass with little tiny medallions of stained glass in between each one. It is not, as far as anybody can tell, original to the condition of the block, nor would it be typical of this kind of a structure, and there is no counterpart to it anywhere else on the block. Can you go 2 more slides, please? This is just a reminder for me to tell you that when they are replacing these windows, they're replacing them with 1/1 normal double hung windows, and this tells us that they're replacing it brick to brick. They're not using the existing moldings that have deteriorated or misshapen and then cramming the new window in. They're doing it brick to brick, which is, arguably speaking, the right way to do it. Does anybody have a question? I see Elizabeth.
Can you go back one slide?
Middle slide? There you go.
Is this 71st Street or 76th Street?
75. I'm sorry, the slide is incorrect, but that comes from them.
Okay, thanks.
It is 75th. Page.
Door question is not the follow towards the third floor.
Oops, thank you.
And it would be perfectly all right to have stained glass windows or stained wood in that high brownstone that has on its northeastern window.
Our best and the applicant's best research is that it was not original. And so the question's been called. All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Those opposed? 1. Abstaining?
Okay, thanks. Next one is 44 West 77th Street. This is another special window, so we're on a theme tonight. What we're looking at here is a window that's not even visible from the apartment itself, practically. It is so this is 77th Street. This is the apartment. This is the building next door. And this is an east side areaway. And then you can see the photographs in there that tell you what you're looking at in the areaway. None of this could ever possibly be seen from any public street. Can we go to the next slide, please? What this is all about is another leaded glass window, and it is, well, this one that would become actually a full pane glass to match windows that they have already approved at staff level elsewhere, but because this has leaded glass in it, let me just make sure I'm right there. Yep, leaded glass, in a rectangular pattern, this can't be approved at staff level. Is there one more slide? No. Can we go back one? What that slide tells you is a little hard to see, but there are dotted lines on all of these windows here. Every single one of them has been modified from its original condition in this areaway, 17 in all. From the count, looking from the 14th floor, it's possible that there are more. So while losing leaded glass is a special window treatment, the committee felt that this was an acceptable modification. Anybody have a question? Paige.
Do you know if they had a master plan for this? Because it's unusual that the landmark commission would not have.
My understanding is that there's a master plan for the primary facade, but not for the areaway. And in fact, if you'll go to the next slide again, you'll see that the staff level has approved 2, 5, 8, 10, 11 replacement windows exactly like this one, which would, and then retaining the double hung windows next to it. So that tells me that they didn't have. That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So no other questions. Call this question. All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Roberta? 40. Those opposed?
Thank you. Next one is 241 Central Park West, and I believe we have some speakers on this one. So this is the building here, and the application concerns a window unit on the side street. So this is at 83rd Street, between 83rd and 84th Street on Central Park West. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the proposal is to take an existing large and small window combination along the side facade. This tells you where on the facade it is, and turn it into a doorway that is ADA accessible. The main entrance is on Central Park West in the middle of the block, and this Art Deco building has a feature that is not unusual for Art Deco buildings. It has a sunken lobby, and because of the sunken lobby, you can't run a ramp in and down in any kind of way that would preserve the integrity of that lobby. But because of grade changes along the side street, they can take this window here and turn it into a doorway at grade, and then you can have a straight shot into the lobby without steps or a ramp or any kind of modification like that. There were three public speakers, there were three public speakers who came to committee, and their concern was not necessarily with the door itself. Their concern, maybe some of them are the ones that are here tonight, their concern is that this is a block, it's actually right over there. I'm sorry, is it 84th and 85th, is it? I'm sorry, it's 84th and 85th. Their concern is that the block on which this doorway would be presented or placed is also a pickup spot and drop-off spot for a school, which means, as we've heard from various other schools, along the Central Park West, there's Columbia Grammar comes to mind, and Dwight School and so forth, that there are times of day which there's very serious congestion. As I understand it, the Transportation Committee has agreed to look at whether or not there should be a loading zone for the ADA accessible entrance, which would hopefully free up the travel lane through there. That's more of a transportation issue than it is a preservation issue. Happy to pass that buck. But that's that was the rate limiting step at committee. I have public speakers, and I will leave it to you to say in the order. We have Jack Lepper. Is that you, sir? Yes, sir. Lepper, followed by Amy Sklar. Is Amy here?
Amy's gone.
Okay. And Natalie Yates. Okay. Well then, okay,
just me.
It falls to you, sir.
Good evening, board members. Our firm, Kagan Lubick, which may be a name that some of you may remember, represents 239 Central Park West. We're on the corner of the southwest corner, directly across the street from this proposed door. The concern of our client is that there will be, there's parking on both sides of the street. There'll be incredible traffic backup if this doorway is provided and there's not a no parking designated area. So while we appreciate this is landmark, so we're going to see the folks at Transportation Committee on the 10th. We just want to make you aware of our concerns and hope that you'll hear us when the time comes. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm going to see Jeanette and then Paige. The intention is to be a secondary entrance for ADA accessibility, but I don't believe that there'll be a gatekeeper. Paige.
Question.
We have Paige and we have Andrew.
I just have one question on the elevation. It looks like that the window that they're trying to make this alteration is already not a
No, my understanding is that there are several that are the big and small.
There's also the difference between the larger window and the one over one. The space between the two windows is narrower.
it may just be an error in the drawing. It was represented to us at committee that this was one of. Oh, well, you might be right. Right, the point that they made at committee is that they would be harvesting, there's an actual curvature of the cast concrete that forms the lower part of the facade of this building, and they would harvest the removed stone from below the window to make it a door, and then use it to infill the smaller portion of the smaller window that wouldn't be required for the doorway. And please. I believe they did, yes. It was very grainy, as I remember. So, but the point that we focused on was that this whole facade, this has had a window replacement master plan, and that the creation of the doorway would match the configuration and divided light elements of the master plan that exists everywhere else. To answer your question, if that window were not original, then this would harmonize better with the rhythm of that street than it does now.
Can we call a question and move this on, please?
Fair enough. Andrew, I'm sorry, before we call.
How far this entrance is from the lobby? Like if a wheelchair was using this, how long a trip would it have to make? Would it have to go inside?
It's a little less than half a block because the main entrance is in the middle of the block. And so this would in effect go through what is now an apartment or doctor's office, and then go into a hallway, and then it would get to the main entrance. Ah, there it is. So the detail area shows you where the doorway would go in, and then that's the main, and you can see here are the stairs that come from the sidewalk. Any other questions? Go ahead. No, we don't. That wasn't part of the application. There are doctor's offices along the side streets, so it's conceivable that that would be a use that would be required. Any other questions? Let's call the question. All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Any opposed? Opposed? One opposed? One?
No, that was it.
No. Oh. Any abstaining?
Okay.
39,000.
Thank you. 141 West 85th Street. This is, so there's your image of it. There are two staircases that lead up to the parlor floors of a row of townhouses that have metal stairs instead of the usual stone. The one to your, so you're looking at the second photograph, the one on the left. The one further in the distance has already been approved at staff level. I'm not sure why. This one is now the subject of our application. It is deteriorated and needs to be replaced. The proposal is to replace it exactly in kind, including the little floral details and so forth there. Is there another slide? This shows you that the two blue are the metal ones, the greens are the traditional stoops, and the reds are where they have gotten rid of the stoop and used the garden or street level entrance to get in. Is there one more slide? I don't think so. No, that's it. Okay. So because the historically accurate way to remedy this is to put back the stone, but that's a very expensive proposition, and because the neighboring building already got permission to recreate its metal railing, the committee voted to permit a replacement in kind. Are there any questions? Yes, sorry.
Maybe this is a friendly amendment, but I mean, these are horrible. And, you can't make them put back the stones to the original stoop design. But we and I think I started this with Lenore, picking up with some gradations of minimally appropriate, reasonably appropriate. Would it be a friendly amendment to hold our noses and say minimally appropriate instead of reasonably?
I would accept that as friendly. Anybody have a problem with my doing that? I see nodding, so I'm going to say that the resolution now is one to approve as minimally appropriate, if I can pronounce that. Any other questions or concerns? Then let's vote. All those in favor of that resolution as amended?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. 39. Opposed?
Anybody opposed? Abstaining? For cause? Moving on. 123 and 125 West 87th Street. Here we go. So it's a little hard to see with the shadows, but what we have are, so the theme here again is metal railings, but this time they want to replace them with stone, with cast stone. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the existing metal railings you just saw, 2 doors down from the second metal railing is this arrangement, which is cast stone with a decorative newel post and balusters going up the side. I think I have one more slide on this. There we go. Shows you the design of the balusters and the newel post up close. Is there one more? There is. And so here's the reason why you have to vote on this. If all they did was replace it exactly like the one down the street, then it would go to staff level. But because that would result in a handrail that was 24 inches off the ground or off the step, and the architect thinks that that is too low, and I'm inclined to agree, what they're going to do is add 4 inches to the base. As you see it, compare this with that, compare this with that. And what that does is keep the proportions of the balusters and the newel post intact instead of stretching them out, which would change the nature and appearance of what we're asking you to approve. So really what you're being asked to approve are 2 things. One is that 4-inch increase in the height and arrangement of these balusters. And then I think there's one more for the doors. Is there one more? There we go. So these are the existing doors on the buildings in question. You'll notice that one of them has the double doors with the large pane of glass, which historically would have a second set of doors inside a vestibule behind them. That would be solid. The second is a modification door that has wood panels all the way through. The proposal is to make a door like this, but using, and this is further down the block, actually across the street, with one panel of the 4 being glass, so that for security reasons you can look through and see who it is that's ringing your doorbell. Because of modifications to the building, the original second set of doors behind this glass panel door were removed ages ago, and so the request for security reasons is to modify the door to have a stronger front door, in effect. So the 2 things you're being asked to vote on are 4 inches on that baluster, and then the revision to the door you see here. Are there any questions? Paige. Understood. The one thing I will say is that the precedents that they showed us as alternatives were from the same block and in the same historic district. But yours is a fair point. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any, so we're gonna vote on, whoops, I'm sorry, go ahead. Let's take a vote and see where we go. The remark was maybe we should separate it into the door and the stairs. Let's take a vote and see what kind of support we get, and if there is a concern, then we'll loop back. So all those in favor of the resolution as written, please raise your hand.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Roberta, you vote. 36. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3.
I got 4.
Four.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Abstaining?
So 36 4 0 0.
Real quick.
Next time something like this comes up, I would ask before you vote on it, how it was the original, because this is gonna look like something on steroids, and people will forget what the original was, when you start jacking and checking. There are other ways you can add it as well, without actually recasting and changing scale.
This will actually be a lower rail than the existing.
I know.
Okay, all right. So, fair enough. Okay, let's keep going. Last one before you is 570 Columbus Avenue, which is a ADA ramp in a very confined space. So this is Bella Luna next door, and this is the small storefront where the ramp would be inserted, and there just isn't enough room to insert an ADA compliant ramp as a straight shot in, and you can't do it side to side like they usually do, because it would then end up in front of somebody else's store. So can we have the next slide, please? What they propose is a ramp that curves around the corner and comes out. And this is a good rendering of it, because for half the year, Bella Luna next door has its outdoor cafe, and so it might blend in. But for half of the year, what you'd have is this visual of this ADA ramp curving around and coming right back at you. And the committee believed that was not the appropriate way. We support the ADA ramp, of course, but the committee felt that this was not the right way to do it. Among other things, one of the suggestions of the committee would be to make a U shape and come back around, and that would have enough room to do it. There's just a better way to do it. And so rather than redesign it for them, we found the appearance to be inappropriate and also a bit dangerous to passers-by, and so the resolution was to disapprove. This is the application as presented to you. I will tell you that since then, we gave the applicant the opportunity to come back in September with a different design. They thought about it and then declined to do that, although I hear now from LPC that maybe they're thinking about the suggestion that Peter and others made of redesigning it. But we can only vote on the application and the resolution that was for us, and that's this. So our yes vote is a disapproval. Are there any questions? Natasha?
No.
No? Doug?
In full disclosure, I was the broker representing the landlord here, and the landlord's an HDFC co-op. We had a nightmare of a situation where LPC would not consider even the application for DOB on the interior for 9 months, and they burned through. They had 5 months free, and they burned through it. We almost put out a small business. I had to get the help of Helen Rosenthal's intergovernmental liaison to assist. It was really a case example of just how the red tape almost killed this small business. However, I was surprised to know that the tenant actually is required to do this, and they were eyes wide open from day one. So I'm interested to know more, and we could talk offline about it, because Mr. Kane is the architect for the building. Perhaps the tenant is using the same architect. But has the question of lowering the floor on the interior been discussed?
Yes, it has, and without excessive detail, what I'll tell you is that it is a relatively narrow space inside, And in order to run a compliant ramp into the space at the angle that you'd have to do, you'd essentially eliminate about a quarter of the usable space inside the door, and that was not a business-friendly solution to the problem.
Right. Thank you.
Richard? It might. It might. It wasn't something we discussed. Again, we don't. This is our last one. We don't want to redesign the thing for him, but that is certainly something that could be a solution. Peter, and then is there one more? Yeah.
There is a simple way to do it, but as you pointed out, it's not for the committee to do the design. But if it was left this way, it would be a real hazard on the sidewalk.
Very good. And Katie?
Sure. Mark, I think you already said this, but I just wanted to clarify that LPC provided the applicant with specific feedback or instructions by which they could come back with another version of the ADA compliance.
No, that was us. We invited him to come back to us.
Yes.
And he declined, and he's going forward next week, so we need to vote.
Okay.
Well, the last thing you may remember in this space is you commented originally, and they had that, my office actually
Can't hear her.
did that space, and we had a removable ramp to be put in place. There are other ways to do it, so it's not permanently done, but.
They're being sued already.
Right. There are legal reasons why maybe that's not the best solution, but anyway, this is what's before us, and so unless there are, yeah.
They had a temporary ramp.
So let's vote. All those in favor of the resolution to disapprove?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Those opposed?
Ineligible. One in.
Accept a motion. And I just want to remind everybody. It's not on.
Mike's not on.
I need these separate.
Yeah, we had just one for cause.
Okay, everybody.
For cause? Barbara, for cause? Just abstain.
Abstain. Okay, thank you, everybody. I will accept a motion to adjourn after I say I want these separate from the voting sheets. Do not clip them together. Thank you, everybody. We will be sending an email out about attendance night and spearheading. And we need to be out of here in like 3 minutes, so grab all your papers, put garbage in the garbage, and walk out the door as fast as you can.